You're listening to the Public Speaking Podcast.
The podcast where real humans talk about communication, presentations, meetings.
And what happens when you stand on stages around the world.
The good stuff.
And the awkward stuff.
And the stuff nobody teaches you.
All right, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Public Speaking Podcast. My name is Lucas. I'm the amateur speaker and CEO of Headgain. And with me in the studio, I am happy to introduce my favorite coach on the planet, the guy that is standing by my side to help guide me, to remove my filler sounds, to make sure that I say the right thing, that I stand with confident, neutral posture, being an amazing person. Yes, hi. All right, let me introduce to you Mr. Alexander Grandiala.
Whoa, thank you so much, Lucas. It keeps on building over and over again how much I dislike, but a little version of me still likes it very much when you do these introductions.
Yes.
Right, then, ladies and gentlemen, people across the globe, my name is Alexander. I work as a communication coach, meaning that I make sure that you be more confident when you stand on a stage, wherever that stage is. Today, we are not having a classical speaker X or me and Lucas talking. Today, we are really humbled by having this next person on, a next guest. Let me give you a little backstory. One of the first times when I met our next guest coming up, he reached out to me and he said, Alex, you know what? Can you have a look at this? And he gave me a look at an introduction of something. I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Ended up having a discussion with him, gave him some pointers, and he gave me some pointers, and we had a chit chat back and forth. And slowly and safely, as I saw him grow to where he is now, has just been nothing less than just a breathtaking journey. And it's been so fun to sit next to it on the sidelines and maybe sometimes giving him a little directional point there, a little directional point there. But I'm truthfully honest in saying that we are now going to listen to one of the persons who are going to make it big in the Estados Unidos in the United States of America. And with that said, I want to welcome no other than Jim Koetting to the stage. Welcome our studio. Whoa. It's like, hey, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, Jim, for our listeners and the ones who's watching and viewing, who are you? What do you do?
Ooh, that's a great question. I've never gotten that before.
No,
who
I
am
know.
I? What do I do? So, well, I think I am epistemologically self-aware, so that's a good thing. Just messing with you. I am a dad. I've got older kids, 27-year-old and a 30-year-old. I'm a husband. That's another thing. I am a person who lives in Kansas City, Missouri. That's in the middle of the United States. And what do? I'm still growing up and I'm still figuring that out. What have I done? I've been a serial entrepreneur. I love business. I've done so much in business. I've had retail stores. I've had an online life insurance company. I've had a financial services company. I built accreditation programs for the institutional bond industry. So all of these governments and cities and counties where they put their monies. I wrote a book called Public Fund Investing for Dummies. I've had a consulting firm. I do a lot of consulting. But today, what I'm primarily doing is I'm a podcaster, I'm a keynote speaker, I'm an author, and I do consulting. And when I do consulting, people say, well, what do you do? And it's taken me a while to figure out this, but basically I work as a fractional chief productivity officer. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
My brain just like,
it sounded really cool.
Go back,
fractional productivity.
One of the challenges that a lot of times you have a COO in a company, you have a chief people officer, a CHRO, and the chief productivity officer goes in and looks at kind of a cross between technology and people. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to take the human capital, the people aspect of it, and raise the value. You're trying to make them more valuable. And a lot of times people can't see what they can't see. Everyone has blind spots. And so when you're dealing with an executive or a leader, you've got to look at, is this a skills problem? Is this a behaviors problem? Because there's different ways of handling that. Do they need to change some behaviors on coaching? That would be a way that you change behaviors, or is it training on a skill level? Well, the other challenge is now we have AI entering the workplace. And what I've come to believe is AI makes you more of what you already are. So if you're a good leader and you're pretty good at communication, your communication is going to get better and you're going to have this tool do some wonderful things for you. If you're a bad leader, if you're a micromanager, if you're a you've got some control issues, then what AI is going to do, it's going to make you unbearable. And so this people development has to happen. If you don't focus on that, you can kill a culture pretty quickly. And a lot of things people don't understand is, what is AI good for? What is not good for? So they're missing this wisdom. And when my new catchphrase is, when output becomes unlimited, judgment, wisdom becomes priceless.
That's so nice. I like it. This we normally have in a segment afterwards. The words of wisdom from Jim today was exactly that. So guys, you need to memorize what he just said. We want to give the audience a little bit more of who you are and what you like.
Certainly.
So we have something now that is 10 tough
Thoughts with Alex.
Exactly. And Luke is doing nothing in this segment. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid questions, fire at you, and then it's just quick. Don't have to give it too much thought. We just want to hear the answer. You're going to get 2 different choices. You select the one that you favor the most. So are you ready for 10 tough thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Give them to me.
3, 2, 1. Jim, fast food or fine dining?
Fine dining.
Still water or carbonated?
Carbonated.
Stay at home or travel?
Travel.
Ooh, nice. Car or motorcycle?
Car.
Off-grid or city?
Off-grid.
Nice. Red or blue?
Blue.
Online or face-to-face?
Face-to-face.
Bed or sofa? Summer or winter?
Summer.
This has been 10 Tough Thoughts with Alex, and Luke is doing nothing in this segment. That is so it's what you came down to as a very good explanation of what it is that you do now currently. There's also something that I follow your journey of, and that is one word that I got really hung up on, or really that I was like, yes, you are, and that is keynote speaker. My question is, at what point did you realize that speaking could become more than just a skill that you could work in the workplace and something that you could benefit and get like to put inside of your business?
Well, one of the things, I've always loved great speakers. I just really have, since I've been, started seeing great speakers. I think there's something about it. I walked away changed. I love great speakers that just take you into it, give you a different way of thinking, somebody who's really honed the craft. And when you see that and when you find that, you think, wow, this is something that I love doing. Now, I love getting on stage. I love getting applause. Who doesn't? I've been a musician for 40 years. I've played in a lot of bands. I've done a lot of things where you get applause. But when you're speaking, when you can take your story and impact somebody else to where it's a game changer for them. They're just looking for your perspective, your story, your insights that will change that audience. There's nothing like that feeling. You feel like you're bringing value and you're making an impact, and that's something that I find fulfillment in, I find purpose in, I find joy in. And at this stage in my life, I have tons of stories and lots of experience. I don't need more stories. Well, you always need more stories, but I need to get out and figure out how do I share that with somebody to make an impact. And whether I'm speaking with somebody just one-on-one or in a large auditorium, it is so important to craft that message and to get it across in a way that has an impact on people's lives. Because it's so neat to see how people completely change from a seed that you've planted.
So true. So
Yeah,
true.
yeah, it touches on a lot of things with speaking, which is just what you said, and it becomes very powerful, especially with the transformation of people and how one message can just move people that much.
Right.
It's really cool. So, what was it like for you? Because you've done, I think you counted 4 different types of businesses, serial entrepreneurism
Mhm.
behind you, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
going into being a fractionated
A
officer.
fractional chief productivity officer.
Yes, there we go. Very hard word. I'll learn it by then. But so how did you then go from like having 4 businesses, or you probably moved from one to one, or I don't know, but then going into speaking? How was that transition for you?
So I think speaking is the catalyst. Speaking is the catalyst for those other things. So if I'm going out and I'm talking to an association or I'm talking to a corporation or if I'm talking to an organization, they all have challenges and problems that they need to work on. And it's always a leadership issue. Every problem within an organization, my friend David, he's always going to say it's always a trust issue. And I take that to a leadership issue. It's always a leadership issue, whether it's self leadership, it's leadership of somebody else. And when I go up and think about speaking, if somebody was going to hire me or find me some other way, the easiest way to have that authority or get credibility on what you're talking about is to actually talk about it. And people want to hear what you have to say before they make a decision to say, oh, is this the right guy to come in and transform our organization? Well, let's see what our people think. It's just a great way of doing it, that there's instant buy-in when people say, oh yeah, I like that guy. I'm glad you brought that guy in. It's something that is a catalyst for other things that I want to do. If I come into an organization, somebody hasn't heard me speak, I'm just the 5th consultant that's come in, and it's like, okay, great. Bob has another idea. He's brought this guy in. No one knows me. But now, because I speak and do that keynote, then there's a little bit of buy-in, and those keynotes and the things that I do have long shelf life. People record those. They stay up on the internet. People see those.
So is that your primary way of getting into the afterwards? It leads to your consultancy work. Is that
Yeah, a
usually
lot
how it
of
goes?
times I'm trying to go after and build a speaking business, and so I'm looking for opportunities to speak, and so I can go in and if I say I'm looking for leadership development, if I go in there and say, well, hey, I help people with leadership development. So does 10,000 other companies, and they have everyone's doing leadership development. You know why? Because it's so needed. But one of the things that I find is it's not companies. I mean, if we're spending all this money, we're not getting the results from that. Why is that? Well, we're in a different time, in a different space. And so how do I differentiate myself as one saying that, let me come in, let me do a speaking, let me do whether it's a small group or whether it's a large group, it's a way of getting your foot in the door to share your story and if we're a good fit or not. And so building that business is, you make the calls, you go through the process, it's a grind like anything else. And once you become really good at it, what I found is a lot of speakers who have built a speaking business, then what happens is all the speaker agencies jump out of the woodwork to come to help you get to that next level. When you're starting off, speaking agencies don't want to have, they'll put you on there, but they're not going to promote you. It's not going to be, yeah, if you want to hire them, great, we'll take a commission. But when you start going out and you're taking business away from them, they're like, oh, well, we were all set to provide you so and so,
Oh, that's the smartest way.
and you've
Going to
gone with this
steal their
guy,
business.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's not on our thing, you know.
No.
Yeah. So has that happened? That's what's happening for you currently?
No, that's not what's happening for me currently. I'm still in the earlier stages of that, but somebody's been speaking for, 10 years and they've got a reputation. There's a lot of great speakers out there who will make, comfortably in the seven figures. The average speaker in the United States runs probably around 160,000 a year.
Hmm. What? So you've also done TED Talks, and what was like? What has what the role of this public speaking, of you publicly speaking your thoughts? Is it? It's been opening your doors, and it's creating trust. But what is it? What am I? My formulation here is, how important was it for you to really design the talks so they were like the door openers, the one that creates the trust, that acts as, like you said, the catalyst of this? Like, what if from Jim's perspective, what are the most important things when you created these talks that you now are going out there to get publicly and having speaker agencies kind of like, oh wait, starting to pick up on you? What is it that you find is the most important things when it comes to your creation of talks?
Yeah, that's really good. So when you go through the ideation of your talk, a lot of people I find things interesting that they're going to talk about, and they think that this is going to be great for the audience. This is a great joke. This is a great um, topic that I'm going to talk about, but they have blind spots and they can't see it. So the first thing that I did is I had to think about, because going from being a good speaker to a great speaker, there's coaching, training, and practice involved. And Alex, you've helped me tremendously in so many areas because there are things that I can't see, like having my, arms up all the time. My arms are up like this, and it's a self-protection. It's a habit that I get into, but it deters from my message. It takes away from that message. And when you start looking at functional hand gestures, that's something that's really, really important. The other thing that helps as far as coaching, and I'm a big proponent of that because I am a coach and I hire coaches, is that you don't understand how important the pause is. People have a brain, and that brain is constantly catching up. And if you don't give it a moment for it to catch up, they're going to miss this next important point. And there are different types of pauses that can be used in a lot of different ways. Now, I'm doing some strategic pausing in there so that the audience can catch up. But if you don't have those pauses in there, that can kill your talk. The other thing that's really, really important is when I look at storytelling, people think that they have a great story. And I started studying stories and what makes a story great. It's David did a great talk on that, the science of the magical science of storytelling, on how it creates chemistry in the brain. So I've got to create dopamine, and I've got to create oxytocin, and I've got to create serotonin, and I got to create a little bit of endorphins, a sprinkle of norepinephrine, a little bit of cortisol, and what David calls in his book, The Angel's Cocktail. That is imperative in giving a talk. And your talks have to have an up and a down and an up and a down. You're actually a shrink performing a Broadway play. And that's what gets it to really resonate. And so when I started looking at my talks, and I would go back and watch the video of them and get some critique and get some coaching, what I found was there was so many areas that I could improve to give that wow factor to the audience. And that's what I was trying to do. There's a lot of speakers out there who are good, but as you become better at speaking, it's a challenge in that you see things that other people can't see, and it becomes kind of a blessing and a curse. I use it,
Yeah.
I can't enjoy the message anymore sometimes because I'm thinking, "Ooh, yeah, we need to." I wanna help that person. Alex, you're laughing. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh, you sit there and like, wait. Okay, yeah, we need to help that person. But like you said, it's a blessing, but it's a curse at the same time. So it's a double-edged sword to that one. Yeah. The would you say spending time on that, building now, like building your business, being a keynote speaker, becoming, we need to talk about author as well, something I reacted to before, and it's like, yes, so cool. The would you say to the audience and saying, okay, is it worth spending the time, the effort to put that in exactly what you just mentioned prior to even thinking about, conveying your message and standing on the stage? Where did you feel that you went the right direction of creating your talks and creating? Because I know that watching, if you guys, if you haven't watched Jim's TED talk, you need to watch this TED talk as well, because it's really regards to storytelling and putting all this beautiful angel's cocktail inside of people's heads with the way that you conduct it. But how would you say that? How important is it for, and how important has this been for you, opening up your doors for being, your business?
It's been incredibly important, incredibly important. I love what, David told me. I asked him, I said, David, hey, how do I build my speaking business? And he just smiled and said, be so good that no one can ignore you. And I thought, oh, that's it. I've got to be good. Everyone's trying to what's the trick or the secret, or how do I land this, or how do I close this deal? I'm like, why don't you try and be really, really good? There's a great book out there called The Referable Speaker.
Mm.
And one of the goals from very top speakers is that once they speak, what they're wanting to do from that speech, if they think it's a success or a failure, it all comes down to, did they get asked to speak at another event? And how many times, by how many people? When people speak, everyone applauds and says, "Oh, you're good," because a lot of people don't. They're glad they're not the one on stage. They're glad that somebody else got up on stage.
Yeah.
You don't have to be that good to get applause, but to be really great, to get somebody to say, "Oh, you've got to come into our organization," that's somebody who's worked on their craft and honed their craft. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the book too as well. When I wrote that book, people said, "How long did it take you to write that book?" I said, "Oh, real simple. 30 years to come up with the content and 6 months to actually write it."
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, it's kind of cute, but when I'm writing that book, the purpose for me is to hone my thoughts, to do some really good storytelling, to give something that I would want to read, that I would be proud of. And I've gone through and I've read a chapter again, and I've read a chapter again. I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. I like this. And what's so surprising to me is I just tell people, I said, just read the introduction. That's all you got to do is read the introduction. It is much easier to get somebody to buy your book than it is to get people to read your book.
Yeah.
Everyone, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I bought your book. Yeah, it's great. Did you read it?" "Well,
Halfway.
no. I've
Two
started it."
chapters.
I said, "Have you cracked it?" I mean, the challenge that we have as a society right now is we're tending more towards the caveman brain and a lot less towards the executive brain. And people don't take the time to read. And what I love is when you start thinking about becoming excellent and doing really great speaking or writing or anything else, it's this prefrontal cortex that you've got to exercise. And having coaching and being challenged and doing podcasts and getting up and honing the craft and practicing again and getting feedback from other speakers is so powerful, so important. You've got to do it.
So you talked a little bit about your book, and we were want to dive into it a little bit deeper. So it's called Hijacked. Could you just take us through bits of the book? Maybe the introduction, as you said.
Yeah. So hijacked. Okay. So what's happened is our brains have been hijacked. You know, no one's immune. Everyone's brain has been hijacked. And what has been hijacked by? It's been hijacked by poor habits. In that I want instant gratification. I want instant gratification. So nowadays, modern days, we have a thing called this cell phone and we have screens. And what we're doing is we're feeding our dopamine. So we go through and we get dopamine hits from reels, from funny things that we look at, and we like that. And so it's kind of become, for a lot of people, a coping mechanism. And there's a lot of phone addiction. There's a lot of screen addiction to where they're measuring people that spend as much as 7 hours a day on screens, 7 hours a day. And so when you start looking at 7 hours a day, what happens is your brain starts working differently. And you start seeing people who don't want to have a long conversation. They don't want to have connection. Just give me the points. Just give me, just get to the point. Get to the point. I want the I want to go on to something else. You know, I want to get back. I want to get back. You know, and there's not a lot of deep thought. And so one of the things that I thought about is many, many years ago, I had this belief system that was false. And I knew that I knew that I knew that I was right and everyone else was wrong. And my belief system is that I don't have a drinking problem. I don't have a problem with drugs. Would you guys stop laying into me about this? It's not a problem. Everyone does it. Now, I couldn't maintain a relationship. I couldn't maintain a job. I couldn't stay in school. You know, all of these things happen. And then there's a little bit of a niche in there. Well, maybe I do have a problem. To all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I have a drug problem and I have an alcohol problem. So now I have this problem. What am I going to do about it? Well, for me, I started going to recovery groups. You know, I started going to AA and I started going to meeting these people, and it was a very, very tough struggle. Well, I had all of this time that I spent drinking and out in the bars and doing everything else. And now there's this incredible void in my life, incredible void. I have all this time. I don't know what to do with it. So I have to think about, how do I substitute this time? And so instead of going to the bars, I went to an AA meeting. You know, so I was substituting that. And I started thinking about that from the screen perspective. And so in the book Hijacked, I came up with, what are things I should be doing that would be much better for me than being on the phone or being on the screen or binge watching Netflix or, you know, doing these things. So the first thing I thought about is prayer. You know, so I thought about in AA, it's really, really important. You know, that spiritual connection is very, very important, but it's not a practice that most people get into. In fact, in AA, I get a lot of people, you know, come in. It's like, oh, I'm an atheist. What am I going to do? Is pray to a God that I don't know and, you know, and I don't believe in and everything else. And I said, yeah, that's what you're going to do. And you start finding that this brings peace to people. There's a whole neurological thing with that. The second thing is read. You know, I need to read. I'm a big proponent of reading. It works a different area of the brain. You've got to sit down with time to get that prefrontal cortex working. In fact, a little segue, Jeff Bezos has outlawed all PowerPoints. He has no PowerPoints in his meetings. He said, what we do is somebody crafts a 6-page memo.
Mm.
It has nouns and verbs and narratives and sentence structures and all that other stuff that somebody's worked really hard on. We sit down in our meeting, we spend 30 minutes reading this silently because no one reads it before we get together. He says the productivity of our discussion is insane. It's incredible. And you can go through and just YouTube that, and you can see them several interviews talking about this. But reading is so, so important. And I look at what are you putting into your brain? What do you put in there? Are you putting in candy? Are you putting in meat and potatoes? If you put a bunch of candy in, a bunch of reels all the time, that's going to affect you. So reading is very important. The next one I thought was exercise. Now, when you first met me, I was 70 pounds heavier than I am today. 70 pounds heavier. And I thought about that and I thought, I've got to start exercising for my brain, for my body, for my health, for everything else. And so instead of when that temptation comes up to look at that phone or, do something, it's like, oh, go for a walk, Jim. Go for a walk. Let's do a couple sit-ups. Let's do, a little bit of stretching. Let's do something else. So I'm substituting now. I've got prayer, reading, exercise. The next one is capture. Getting pen to paper, journaling. How do I capture my day? How do I capture my story? How do I get from my day instead of get through my day? The next one was engage. I thought about, just getting up and organizing drawers. You've got messes, or you got a messy closet, you got messy stuff all over the house. Why don't I just engage in organizing that? Why don't I engage in having an encounter with somebody? Why don't I engage in just having a conversation with somebody? Engaging. Why I'm stuck on this screen. I need to substitute engaging. The last one was, or the last two are practice. This is something that I don't do as much as I like to. I've got a piano here, I've got a guitar here. I'm not where I need to go. And practicing is really healthy for the brain because I'm using this hand, I'm using this hand, I'm doing the timing. When you put a thing on the brain, one of those little scanners where you scan all the different brains, and you look at somebody listening to music, it lights up that whole brain. But when you look at somebody playing music, oh, wow. That whole thing, that's exercising that whole brain. And I'm thinking that is much more healthy for me to do that versus something else. And then the last one is thinking time. Great book out there called um, The Road Less Stupid.
Good
And
title.
it is a great book. And it's by Keith Cunningham, and he talks about thinking time, and he talks about sitting down, just pen and paper, writing down 3 meaty questions and sitting with your thoughts. And when I can get somebody to do that, they'll come back and say, Jim, oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. I'm like, yeah, that's a really powerful thing up there. That when you use it, it is really exciting. So it was an idea that I had is, okay, first, here's the problem. You're addicted to your phone. You're watching the screen too much. I don't care who you are. You have a challenge. And everyone says, well, I don't even use my phone. I said, do you ever watch the news? Well, yeah, I watch the news. Do you watch Netflix? Yeah, I watch. It doesn't matter where your screen is. It doesn't have to be your phone. It's this screen that we're trying to get this dopamine. And our brain always wants dopamine. And there's a difference between slow dopamine. So problem, here's the solution. You can take and start substituting some of these things. And when I've had people come back to me after they read this book, they'll be on the plane like, oh, this is really good. I'm like, yeah, that was the intention, that was the intention. I wanted to write something really good that it's like, can you sell me 2 more? I'm like, yeah, I'd like to give these to people. I'm like, great. So that was the idea of the book. That's the premise of the book. But there's a lot of people out there talking about, dopamine nation and all these other things. I wanted to give some practical things like, all these books out there says, everyone has a problem. Here's the problem. This is the problem. What's the problem? I'm like, great. I know I have the problem. What's the solution? Back to that addiction thing. Start going to meetings, get a sponsor, start working some steps. And all I could do is show up and do the meetings. And then I'm like, okay, I should work these step things and do an inventory and, you know, all these other things that I need to do. And I just keep taking away from it. But that was the idea on the book. And talking about that, I think this is, from a leadership perspective, this is the biggest challenge that leaders face today is they're dealing with a distracted workplace. They're so distracted and one of the things that people are doing is they're trying to relax with their phone. They're trying to regulate their emotion. I've had a long day and just need to sit down with the phone with a glass of wine or, we have these things over here that are legal called edibles, a little bit of THC. And they don't realize that all of that stuff that they're doing creates more anxiety, and it's a
Yeah, it's
self-perpetuating, and they've
yeah,
gotta break that.
100%. It's so easy to escape from reality because
Mhm,
there are so many outlets today for
mhm,
escape. It feels like society has been built for escaping from
right.
what's real, and yeah, everything that you're saying it's a known, but it's people are just not doing it. Instead, they are making the active choice of being on the screen, being on the phone, being on socials, being on the Netflix, being on
Mhm.
the everything's connected to this what's supposed to be called a smartphone, but it's a dumb phone, and
It is. It so is.
yeah, but I love that. For anyone listening, I mean, just buy the book, read it, follow it. I mean, it is as simple as following these steps, but people are not doing it. That's the problem. They need to swap their bad activities for better activities and start making a change. If you want to go somewhere else than just sitting on your couch and just being, a potato. Mm.
I think there's a lot of people who are looking and I use this story a lot and, husband and wife, they're sitting at home, they got the TV on, they got their phones out. Well, listen, guys, you just spent 3 hours next to each other, but not connecting,
Mm.
and you gotta make that connection. Get up, go for a walk, have a conversation, be patient with the other person. I struggle with that too. It's like, get to the point, get to the point, get to the point. I'm just like, just listen. Let your spouse talk. Just let her talk. One of the best things that leaders can do and anybody can do is learn how to be a good listener. Another word for listening is love. You show love to somebody by listening to them. And I feel the love from you guys. So
See,
thank you.
this is the word of wisdom by Jim Koetting. Yes, that was the words of wisdom. Listening is love.
Mhm.
Love is this is that I think that's a t-shirt, Lucas. It's a t-shirt.
It's a
It is.
t-shirt.
It's a
Sure.
t-shirt. Coming up, I have here's the thing. We've talked about this with other people as well, but it's always great to see your perspective to it as well. We mentioned a little bit, but AI, the artificial intelligence. What is do you think? So, in a business perspective, where do you think that's gonna go now, compared to this with the hijack thing,
Well,
as
yeah,
we're facing it?
AI is a tool that is extremely powerful that everyone's gonna use. It's here to stay. It's like, a calculator or cell phone, people are gonna use it. The problem is that without wisdom, people will not use it well. It's learning how to use it and learning how to have that discipline. It's fun to go through and do a lot of things with AI. Having I've another business that I had is a pretty big software company. So I did a lot of software back in when I remember being 9 years old. My dad had a computer. It was an IBM System 3, took up the whole
Hmm.
size of the room. He was the only one with a computer, the key punch cards. This is the old school days and everything else. And IBM at the time said that the personal computer would never take off. And my dad believed that. What do you think happened to his business? It didn't fare well with that ideology. And of course it took off, but getting that experience with the computer, and when he brought the first portable computer home. I'd been taking computer classes in school, and I was fascinated with theirs. And there's only 8 guys in my whole high school that were computer nerds. And we only had 3 computers. 2 of them were good. And so we just learn and, take turns on it and stuff like that. So dad brings that home. I wrote this whole program for my mom's flower store. And he's like, "How did you do that?" I said, "Well, dad, I, learned this in school." And he goes, he was just blown away that I could figure that out. And that is kind of where AI, people are having these great experiences with it and having fun with it and doing all sorts of stuff. So it's here to stay. I think though, my statement of when output becomes unlimited, judgment becomes priceless, because I can use AI to create a lot of things that I probably shouldn't create, you
Mm,
know? You're building a ladder against the wrong wall. I mean,
yeah.
Elon Musk talks about this all the time. He says, you can ideate on a program that's never gonna take off or never gonna work, but you've made this perfect reverse Crotus bowler that no one wants. How do you I could use AI to make a better buggy whoop or a better carburetor, but our cars have moved on from carburetors to fuel injection systems. Why would I want to do that? But having the wisdom is very difficult. So I've seen AI become a challenge within organizations because they don't know how to use it. So again, back to the manager who has control issues and is a micromanager. Now he's getting reports. It's like, well, we're supposed to come in at 8 and you're here at 8:05, and what's going
Mm,
on? And it just kills that whole environment. Or somebody's in a deep thought area, and AI sends them an email every 5 minutes. Hey, did you get this done? Did you get this done? Did you get this done? No one needs that. No one needs that stuff. But a lot of times, if we don't increase the wisdom, the real wisdom, then AI is not going to be helpful. And how do you look at this? Because what we're going to have is we're going to have agents that you're going to have to lead, and creating agents and AI. I love it. It's fun. It's great. But I've also got to say, Jim, it's time for you to sit down, get away from the computer, and get pen to paper, because I've got to get that prefrontal cortex working, because real intelligence is something I need to develop. AI works so much better when it has real intelligence.
mm. Yeah, I think that's the problem that a lot of people are having currently. They try to skip the knowledge gap and go
Yeah.
straight to AI for the knowledge, where it should be the other round. You should acquire the knowledge and then leverage the AI to amplify your knowledge, basically. But yeah, so Jim, if we're now in 2026, and you're working in the lane of leadership. And what do you think over the next decade, with how things are evolving now? Like, what communication skills do you think will matter the most?
All of them. Communication skills are the most important thing. Let me put it to you this way. Organizations that are successful and doing well, the leaders say, well, it's because of our people. And I would say, wrong. It's because of relationships. It's not just the people, it's the relationships. It is because of the relationships. When I go through and I measure an organization, I look at 5 things. And this is a massive study that Google did years ago. This is how do you measure productivity? You look at 5 things: communication, relational trust, alignment, execution, and capacity. Most leaders will go through and say, well, we need alignment and we need execution, alignment, execution, alignment, execution. Well, you can't get execution without alignment, and you can't get alignment without relational trust. And relational trust has to do with psychological safety. Psychological safety, a lot of times, is when people feel okay putting out their ideas, good, bad, or indifferent. If they tighten their lip and won't put out information or will not share things, There's a fear that they're going to be chastised, or, oh, we don't put up with stuff. And, this whole relational trust thing is a very big issue. That does not happen without the pinnacle on the top is communication. And communication is the linchpin of everything else. If you have poor communication, everything else falls apart. And so that is where people need to really work at. And communication is becoming so much different with this new generation coming on because they do not know how to communicate. So when I was a kid, we had a rule. We come home for dinner when, a certain time of the day, or when the street lights come on, that's when we come home. So we would just go out in the neighborhood as kids and we would play, and we'd get in quarrels and we'd do fights and we'd figure out the kickball game, and we'd have adventures and we'd do all of this stuff with our friends out in the neighborhood. So we learned a lot of social interaction skills, and it was a completely different era when I grew up
Yes.
in.
Oh, so
When I
different. So
when I
different.
look at kids today,
Yeah.
they might have had helicopter parents. They're in their room, they're on screens all the time, and they don't know how to communicate. Case in point, true story. There's a mom giving the kids rides home from soccer. It's football in your area. We call it soccer here. They're giving the kids ride home. One of the kids is hungry in the back of the car. So what the kid does is gets out his phone, texts his mom. His mom calls the mom driving the car and said, "Billy's hungry. Can you stop by McDonald's?" Billy's right behind, the person in the car, but,
Yeah.
couldn't
No.
communicate
No.
that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have this problem.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no, yeah, I'm opting out. I'm opting out. There's no hope
Please,
for
world.
society. Yes, please, world. Hey, time runs by when you have fun and when you're listening to somebody who has so much knowledge as you do, Jim, to share with us. It's coming to closing up this podcast episode. I do have a humble question with the word of wisdom that you have shared and listen in on. I truly believe we always ask our guests this: if you would, dead or alive, preferably alive because it's hard to bring back the dead, who would you like to see sitting in our studio that you would listen to on our podcast? Do you have anybody, or it doesn't have to be a person, it can be a type of organization, like, a group of people, or we have had politicians come as somebody who they want to listen to. Do you have anyone in particular that you say like, aha?
Oh, yeah. So I think this would be good, having David on, that would be really, really good one. There's a lot of speakers that anytime you have a good speaker on who's making a good business in the speaking industry, I think that is fascinating. I like people on that do deep thinking, brain type of stuff. I love brain stuff. I have people that I have on from brain surgeons and different things like that. But brain health is really, really important. But those are the types of people that I want you to have on. I want you to have really good speakers on. Have David on. David's a good speaker, have him on. I want to also put out, to all of my friends who watch this, you need to plug in to this group with Lucas and Alex. Alex is a wonderful coach. Alex is my coach. Alex has taken me to that next level in speaking. I can't do this on my own. He just has abilities to help you get to that next level and has the tools to get there. And so it's a great community. It's an online community. Lots of people over in Europe, lots of people around the country. I still have friends, from our cohort that deep friendships that, people over in Holland and Barcelona, and lots of my buddies over in England, and that I wouldn't have never met and had these great relationships with these amazing people had it not been for what you guys put together. And so I just want to encourage people, Speaker X, Speaking Blueprint, these are things that you've got to do to up your game. And when I go back to my book, I talk about practice. Practice your
Yes.
communication. You've got to practice it to get better at it.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. And we have already said, look at your TED Talk, go in and find the book. But of course, we want to give you that little spotlight of your own finding. Where can we find you? Where can people say, like, I loved what Jim was saying. I want to figure out more. Where do they find you?
I'm pretty easy to find all sorts of different things on this little thing called Google. If you go to Google and you say, "Who is Jim Koetting?" it'll give you everything about me that is very, even AI will tell you who I am. But you just Google me. I've got lots of
That's
websites. I've got books. I've got a great podcast. I think I'm trying to make the best leadership podcast out there, and so I've got really great guests out there. So if you want
wow.
to get to my YouTube channel, all this other stuff, you can find it all just by Googling Jim Koetting.
Well, you know what, Jim? It is a true pleasure and an honor to have had you on board. And thank you so much. Lucas, you want to have the final remarks for this podcast episode?
If I do, will you have something extra to say this time, or will you just let me finish?
This time I will be quiet. I do promise, solemnly swear, I will not
We'll
say
see.
anything.
We'll see. Jim, thank you so much for coming to us at the Public Speaking Podcast. Pleasure speaking with you, hearing your story, hearing your angles on both AI, leadership, and communication. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. For
Thanks,
you as a
guys.
listener, yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. For you as a listener, please do what you know what to do. Give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, make the podcast grow. If we grow, you grow, and communication will take over the world. Thank you, and have an awesome week. See you next time. Bye!